That horrendous night of December 18th at the town hall premises, on which the savage of terrorism was roaming like a thief, has been affixed to the political landscape of Sri Lanka as another unobliteratably quaking episode. Similar to other historical events of this country, this traumatic event too would go down the nation's political annals. The final propaganda rally leading to Sri Lanka's fourth presidential pose was thronged by thousands of supporters and well-wishers. There was only a time frame of less than 72 hours more. President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, having addressed the final rally, stepped down from the stage, acknowledging the deafening cheers and greetings from the crowds. She was on her way to her presidential limousine. Instantaneously, the bomb, which was symbolic of the LTT's manifest virulence and cannibalism, exploded. The sparks of prejudice were dispersed. The nation was jolted. All citizens were in a daze. The unilateral question in their hearts and minds was what fate may have befallen President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga. Even by that time, the president had already been rushed to Navalota Hospital. People who were appalled until that time heaved a sigh of relief on learning from the media that their beloved leader was out of danger. From that moment onwards, until the night of January 3rd, there would have been undoubtedly a plethora of thoughts which would have flashed across the president's mind. Whether it was during her stay in hospital, or whether when she was at Temple Trees, or whether when she was under medication in London. The manner in which she spent her last 50 years, the moments of anguish and challenge would have constantly flashed across her mind in retrospect. Her longest address to the nation was on the night of January 3rd. It was a result of an excursion down an unblemished and uncanny memory. It was also a prelude to her future convictions. Her inclination on that occasion was to spell out reality as reality. She deviated from her customarily fundamental, acute and provocative style. We are of the firm belief that an individual is most transparent to whom he or she is totally devoted and affectionate. There are no impediments to a national leader who has been accepted by 2 consecutive mandates to spell out her own morality to those who provided him or her the mandates. We observe the passionate address she made to the nation on January 3rd was in contrast to her profound and philosophical addresses to the United Nations General Assembly, the international community, Parliament and the Western Provincial Council. We see the January 3rd address as one in lighter vein. The contrasting styles of these addresses, we observed, are 2 ends. She has been blessed with a new voice, a new rhythm, and a philosophy which has been honed by her unrelenting mannerism and fortitude. However, you and I should get to know her realistically. What we have hitherto not known of her, coupled with what we are going to know about her now, will undoubtedly pave the way to usher in a new start.
මම කවදාවත් මගේ සිතුම් පැතුම් මගේ බලාපොරොත්තු මගේ පෞද්ගලික ජීවිත දර්ශනය මගේ දේශපාලන දර්ශනය
I have never publicly spelled out up to now my aspirations, my ideologies, my private life, my political philosophy, my convictions, and the manner in which I should act. In short, I have never spoken of myself. The reason for that is that I am a very humble individual. I have been very critical of the media whenever they have written or published praiseworthy things about me. I have many times declined answering questions at various interviews about my personal life. However, during the past few days, I have been very seriously pondering on these matters. Then I decided to speak to the public about myself. The reason for this decision has been that the voters of this country have given me the second consecutive mandate, despite the main opposition UNP and a section of the media which has ingratiated itself to it, has been vehemently attempting to portray me as a woman of the worst morals. Therefore, I am taking this opportunity to spell out to the people who this Chandrika is, whom the people love so much. Nevertheless, I have left out large segments of events relating to myself because I don't like to boast about myself. Firstly, I would like to spell out the foundations on which my life has been molded. From my early childhood, I had adhered to some rigid principles which I did not compromise even in my adulthood. I'm a very flexible individual, and I have been willing to change my course of action depending on the needs of the masses without compromising my principles. My life has been molded on these principles, coupled with the teachings of my parents and that of the Dhamma. I have been visiting the Vajraramya temple from the age of 5 to learn the Dhamma. My mother sent us there because we were schooling in a convent. I have debated with the priests at the Vajraramya. I'm not an individual who carries flowers and loiters around bo trees. I have learnt Buddhism in depth, which includes the Abhidhamma as well.
When she was touring the footpaths in the villages, probably the villagers would have intuitively thought that she would someday become a mature national political leader. However, the molding she received at that time proved to be the strength of her journey to date, and that of the future as well.
මගේ ජීවිතය අවුරුදු 22ක් දේශපාලන කෙරුවා. මම වෙනුවෙන් නෙමෙයි අනිත් අය බලයට පත් කරන්න මම කවදාවත් අනතුරු ඉල්ලුවේ නැහැ.
I have been engaged in politics for the last 22 years, not on my behalf, but to groom others into power. I have always acted to fulfill my political philosophy. I have acted in a manner to make my political philosophy reign supreme. I was associating the masses with that noble object in mind. Thus, I don't think it is a falsehood if I say that no other politician has travelled so extensively to every nook and corner of this country than myself, with the exception of the North and East. I did not visit these villages with the mere intention of a cup of tea and a chat. Instead, I have had political discussions spanning hours with crowds numbering between 200 to 300 and 2,000 while sitting on a mat in these villages. It was not difficult for me at all in involving myself in politics, as both my parents have introduced politics and political philosophy to me from my childhood. As a family, we observed the tremendous sacrifices that our parents made in their political careers. When my father started his political career, he had 4,000 acres of land, which was reduced to 2,000 at the time of his death. This is because he had gifted half of these lands to the masses. When my mother's government was in power, it established the Land Reform Commission, which acquired all our family lands, leaving a mere 200 acres for my mother and the 3 members of our family. We never earned a single cent through politics. My father was in the habit of doling out money to poor people who came to see him at home.
In a country where politics provides a large number of benefits to people, there are also few who have lost their belongings and assets also due to politics. She is also one among those few. Politics, in her lexicon, has been defined as a stipulation of losing many things.
හැබැයි හැමදාම මට උවමනාවක් තිබුණේ මොකක් හරි කරලා රටට සේවයක් රටේ ජනතාවට
However, one of my principal convictions was that I should firmly resolve myself to serve the masses without settling down abroad. Now I have done that.
පැරිසියට ගිහිල්ලා
I traveled to Paris to study political science. We had gifted all our lands to the people by that time. We had neither done business by fraudulent means nor taken bribes.
ඒ නිසා
Therefore, we were not prepared to take money from businessmen for personal reasons, though we take funds for politics.
මම වෙන් කරලා තියනවා.
I have differentiated between politics and my personal life. I presented myself at an interview during the Dudley Senanayake government in 1967 and was placed first.
1967
Then the French government awarded a scholarship to me. I decided to read for a degree in political science. After graduation, I was reading for my PhD in development economics. I specifically selected the subject of agricultural economics because around 62% to 65% of Sri Lanka's population at that time was depending on farming as their livelihood.
කියන විෂය හැදෑරීම
I wanted to specialize in this field so that I could serve the farming community.
ආපහු ඇවිල්ලා
At that time, I had absolutely no intention of vying for political positions. I had firmly decided not to take to politics, being aware of the agony my parents went through. However, I was resolutely committed to serve the people, as this very concept was firmly entrenched in me.
මම නම් දේශපාලනය කරන්නේ නැහැ.
My plans at that time was to enter the government service and serve the people, as there was no private sector at that time.
මම මොකක් හරි රජයේ රැකියාවක්
Soon after my return from Paris, I joined the Land Reform Commission, as its activities were very closely linked to my subjects.
ඉඩම් ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණ කොමිෂන් සමාව
I served the Land Reform Commission for 5 years and traveled the length and breadth of the country, barring the north and east. The people who benefited by our schemes will bear eloquent testimony to this.
අපි කරපු
People knew me personally, as I had been in public service for a period of 5 years.
ලංකාව හැමතැනම අවුරුදු
As the 1977 parliamentary elections drew closer, there was enormous pressure for me from people in 5 electorates to contest the polls.
ලංකාවේ මැතිවරණ
They came in busloads. They were firmly convinced that the SLFP could not win those electorates due to the organizers of those areas being weak.
ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කළා අන්තිමට ගෙදර
I rejected contesting all 5 electorates, and I stayed at home.
ඉස්සරහට දාලා
I used to keep a person at the gate and directed that person to say that I was not at home when these supporters came looking for me.
සංවිධාන කටයුතු වලට
Though I had firmly decided not to engage in active politics, I was helping the party as I was one of its active members. I returned from Paris in 1972 and participated prominently in party activities till 1977. During that time, I never craved for position or money. The biggest satisfaction I derive is from ensuring the successful implementation of my political philosophies. That is the only satisfaction I derive, even as the President of Sri Lanka.
ආන්දිනේව බලන්න කැමතියි.
I do not get any other satisfaction because I have no time for anything else. The things that I like are music, drawing, and painting.
සාර්ථක නුන
I have also held exhibitions of paintings. I also like to see the paintings of others. I also write poetry in both English and Sinhala.
සේවයක් වෙන දෙයක්.
I read a lot as well. But I have no time for any of those pastimes. The only satisfaction I derive is from serving the people and to ensure their success. At the same time, I also grieve when some of these plans fail. That is my political philosophy. Whatever I do, my political philosophies entail providing assistance or a service to the masses while being productive at the same time.
Politics, which was an inherent feature in her, could not be defeated with whatever external stimuli.
මහා මේද පර්වතයක්සේ මගේ ජීවිතේ මහා කරදරවලට මුහුණ දෙන්න කෙනෙක් මම හිතන හැටියට ගැහණියක් නෙමෙයි කිසිම මිනිහෙක්වත් මේ තරම් දුක් විඳලා නැහැ. සමාජ
I have faced large bouts of agony and depression, but withstood them firmly and strong as a rock. Let alone a woman, I don't think even a man has gone through the trauma that I have gone through in my personal life.
තුමා 150ක්
Nobody has faced the calamities that I have faced in a political career.
නමුත් මේ සියල්ල
Nobody has also lost the number of loved ones that I have lost. I lost my father, husband, and fiancé. I also lost over 150 political colleagues during the Reign of Terror, some in front of my own eyes.
ජීවිත දර්ශනය
Even my family members are opposed to me. They're jealous of me. When I was forcibly brought back to the party, about 3/4 of its members showed open enmity towards me. I was able to withstand all this resistance because of the strength of my political philosophy, in which I was totally engrossed.
The past is very often not buoyant. The past, which has been already spent, is certainly not buoyant in the backdrop of deficiencies. However, the past cannot be forgotten merely because it is not buoyant. In some lives, the future is made a success by ensuring that the troubles of the past are transformed into productive experiences.
අපේ තියෙන සියල්ල අපි ජනතාව වෙනුවෙන් කැප කරලා තියෙන්නේ. තව ටිකෙන් මගේ ජීවිතේත් කැප කරනවා. මගේ තාත්තගේ ජීවිතේ ජනතාව වෙනුවෙන් කැප කරුවා. සියලු බුදලේ කැප කරලා ඉවරයි.
We have sacrificed all our wealth for the benevolence of the masses. Recently, I almost sacrificed my life. My father sacrificed his life too. We sacrificed our entire legacy for the upliftment of the masses. My husband sacrificed his life for the masses too. I don't know when I will have to sacrifice my life, but I have sacrificed my entire wealth. Therefore, I do not have even the scantest regard for money and wealth. If I do not have regard for money, I can neither take bribes nor steal money. This is because I have a lot of self-respect. I'm not a vain individual. But I have a lot of pride in the self-confidence that I have. I also have pride that I will never succumb to wrong and injustice. Therefore, I do not borrow money from people because of this pride. I borrow money on behalf of the party, but not for me as an individual. I would much rather beg on the street or be engaged in some minor employment rather than steal. When I was in France as a student, the money that I received from the scholarship of the French government was barely sufficient for my sustenance. I did not have additional money for extras such as books, drama, stage plays, ballet, and the cinema, which I loved so much. At that stage, I can remember one of my mother's friends who was working in the International Labour Organization sending a check for either 1,000 francs or dollars, thinking I did not have enough money. She has done this with my mother's permission. I promptly returned the money. This is because there was a law which was enacted by my mother's government itself, which prohibited foreign remittances from Sri Lanka. I told her that this was money that belongs to Sri Lanka, and she should not have sent it to me. However, I did minor jobs to earn money. There were numerous job opportunities within the university itself, which included sweeping the floor on Sundays. However, there were the university staff for sweeping the floor during the weekdays. There were other opportunities in the university canteen, such as serving food or sweeping and washing the floor. I have done all these jobs. Professor Somaratna Balasurya, who was also in the university with me at that time, will bear testimony to this. I did it with great pleasure and pride, because I did not sacrifice my fierce sense of independence and self-respect in doing so. I did not even compromise my soul or lose my self-respect in doing so. After all, what is wrong or unethical in sweeping the floor? Moreover, I did not see anything demeaning in it. I was in one of the in-house committees of my university which decided on the students who were to be given part-time employment within the university. I had beaten all my French colleagues and was placed first in that election. I was in leftist politics while being a university student in France. I also played a lead role at the time of the student riots in France in 1968. When I was serving in that in-house committee, there was a Sri Lankan colleague who was lamenting for employment opportunities. When I told him that he could sweep the floor to earn some pocket money, he bemoaned, "How can I do such a demeaning job?" Then I told him that he could keep quiet if he were not satisfied with it. When my husband Vijay was assassinated, I fled to England with my 2 children. I had limited friends at the time I left for England. Both Vijay's bank accounts were overdrawn. When I was in the Sri Lanka Mahajana party, I had sold 11 out of the 50 acres of land I had. However, I did not waste that money. I had deposited these funds in the bank, and it is out of that I withdrew during my times of need. As these funds were limited, I took up employment in an international organization affiliated to the University of London to do research work. There, the research I undertook was the genesis of political violence in Sri Lanka. I thought of undertaking this topic for this assignment, as nobody had undertaken this subject area before. I firmly believed that this story had not been narrated earlier. However, I could not finish this assignment. Then I was forcibly brought to Sri Lanka and made to enter the political arena. The earnings I derived from that assignment were very low. It merely helped me to keep my head above water. When my mother saw the flat that I was living in, she started crying. Although I had maintained it artistically,